Welcome to episode 14. This is straight to it. As you see, I'm here in the studio by myself, but I'm a loner in life, so I don't mind it. My other two friends, my other two boys, my other two brothers are not here. They're off on assignment. And as you hear me talk about them from time to time, I have no idea what those assignments are, but that's another day. Tonight is a very special interview. I'm doing one on one with my man, 50 grand. I've known this gentleman for over 20 years. We played basketball, we played video games, we went to the bars together. We go way back like car seats. Me and this guy have been through a lot through the years, and we've just recently reconnected. He's a good brother. He expanded his career in basketball, which he loved, and it took him all across the world. He's come back. He's doing bigger and better things and spreading his knowledge to the youth, and I respect that. With all things being said, this guy, he's a hell of a basketball player. I've always told him that. He's a Hall of Famer, where a lot of people don't say it to him, and I deeply respect him. I give him his props all the way around. And like I said, we known each other for years. And anytime we get the opportunity to link up, it's like riding a bike. But I'm talking about none other than Bilal Salaam, my man.
Thank you. Man, I appreciate that introduction.
Mhm.
Uh, it's you know, sometimes I look back and I'm just like, I ain't do none of it for those accolades. You know what I mean? It was just the love of the game, man, that kind of pushed me.
Mhm.
And I always been a guy who's, you know, led the league in shot blocking and things of that nature. So I always been one who tried to defend others, service
Mhm.
for others, things of that nature. Like
Right.
that's just who I am at my core.
Good. So, B, we known each other for years. I know a little bit about your story. I know, a little bit about your upbringing because we talk, me and you, Jeff, TJ, the usual fellas, the usual suspects, Frank, Eric Hill, soon, and other characters that will soon like make an appearance on the podcast. But tonight is about you. So I want you to kind of peel back. Tell me how it all started from those days in Delaware to where you currently are and how things are currently trending.
Oh wow. So um man, Wilmington, Delaware. A lot of people don't know much about Wilmington, Delaware. Really small community of people, um, mostly African American. A lot of people here in Delaware and like, oh, what's there and things of that nature. But Wilmington is a very small community. You know everybody. It's really home for me. Like I've been blessed to have a good foundation of who I was in my community and what I needed to stand for by coming out of Wilmington. And I was blessed to have the game of basketball and be able to do it at the park and at different places, like the Mecca, we call it, West Center City
Hmm.
in Wilmington, of basketball. And I went from there, played in high school at Howard High School of Technology. Really didn't get a whole lot of playing time my junior all the way up into my senior year. Because of course, I wasn't where I was 6'7" at the
Hmm.
time. I graduated high school at 6'2". Um,
Nice.
so when I graduated from high school, I went to Delaware State. Was there my first year out of school in '99. I graduated at 17,
Hmm.
and while I was at Delaware State, I tried to walk on a team there because I just loved the game. I was always in the gym.
Hmm.
And my mom was like, they got to give you some scholarship money, and they didn't have any. So my mom was like, nah,
Oh yeah.
we're not going to do that. So I had a 4.0 my first semester. Um, Next semester comes, I'm sleeping like crazy. I have no idea what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm in the gym. When I can get in the gym, I'm putting up shots, playing 5-on-5 with the guys out there, and you know, I'm just having these days where I'm sleeping, going to sleep at 8 p.m. and I'm not waking up until 2 p.m. the next day.
Mm-hmm.
It was out of this world. So my grades suffered, of course. My mom pulled me out of school. We're not paying for you to go to school to sleep, right?
Right.
Like that's
Facts. True facts.
so I left Delaware State. I think my GPA suffered tremendously. I think I had like a 2.6 when I ended up leaving after having a 4.0 my first semester. And my mom pulled me out of school, says, you're going to take a year off, find out what's going on with you. I had no idea I was growing at the time. So that was the first year. Then I took that year off and up at Coatesville, right? First time you meeting Jeff and Ty and all of those guys, and I'm playing against them. And after the game, I'm 6'6" at this point in time. I done grew 4 inches since I graduated high school, and that was the reason why I was sleeping like crazy. So I leave from there, and we get finished the game. I think we ended up beating Kutztown's team at the time, and the only other college that was on me or university that was on me was Lincoln. And as you know, they were D3 at the time. They had no athletic scholarships. So
Right.
Kutztown approached me, and Coach Driscoll brought me up to Kutztown probably like 3 weeks before school started. Like, hey, I want you to check out Kutztown University. And so I went up there. I checked out Kutztown, and it was different because in Wilmington I live 5 blocks from the police station, 6 blocks from the fire station. All night I'm hearing sirens and things all night. So when I went up to Kutztown, I seen this green grass. I seen people walking around. It was just peace.
Yeah.
And I absolutely fell in love with the sights and surroundings and the environment, before anybody came on campus. And I did not know that it was a PWI. And when I got on campus, as you know how I am, I was really into myself and so into my community. And coming from BCU, it was very hard for me to get comfortable, and it almost took me like 2 years. So I'm myself. I'm outspoken, but I'm reserved to some degree on what I allow myself to be in. So I excluded myself from a lot of things, and it wasn't until like my junior year up at Kutztown, talking to Roger Jackson, who you probably know Roger Jackson.
Yeah, I do.
And he was like a mentor for me there when I would go to the Multicultural Center where I work at now. And I was just like, I don't know if I can open up here because I don't want to be white. I don't want to lose my foundation. And he was like, he just said it to me. He was like, that'll never happen. You're here more than what I mean? So once he kind of like explained those things to me, I kind of opened up more, got to see different people's perspective. And I had to, because I was at that point in time, I was in computer science.
Right.
So my classmates outside of Al Brown, who was my roommate too, outside of him, there was no other African Americans in the class. So I had to start talking to the guy from Israel, and I had to start talking to, the guys who didn't look like me, come from different backgrounds and different racial, and different ethnicities. So it forced me to open up to some degree, and it kind of made me more willing to see people for who they are in their totality, not just as this Caucasian person or this Jewish guy or this Asian guy. It was, it's an Asian guy who has to do the same work that I got to do, and he has the same questions that I have now. So it made me realize that we are all here trying to better ourselves, and this job that we're going to have to do in the future, we're going to need each other to get it done.
Right.
Much like the game of basketball.
I think for me, when we first met, we were playing in the Keystone gym, and like we always did. I think it was preseason. I forget all the characters that were involved, but I remember DC was there, Jeff, obviously, Ty, just the regular crew.
Right.
I remember like us just playing. I was like, this kid, man, is getting fucking annoying. Like you were good. You were good. You know, at that time, I don't think your game had fully developed. Not even when I met you, your game was fully developed. I think towards the tail end, and like it was like I kind of watched you grow, right? So the first year, as you stated, you were merely a defensive presence, but I feel like somewhere after the first year and like throughout, you just started getting better. And I watched you. And I remember when we would come back, because obviously college school started in August, we would go right back to the gym, all of us, and just play. We would play. People would look at us like we were just crazy. Like some of the runs that we had, like I don't think people really understood like how serious we took that. So you know, you had the Eric Hills, you had the T Davis, you had Will, you had all these characters. And then I just watch you. I was like, okay, he's shooting now. All right. He's handling now. Okay. So, like in my mind, I started to piece it together. I was like, okay, like you worked out.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's like when we were at school, you didn't really have to do much. And like if you watched even the interview I did with Jeff, he openly admitted he didn't really take the game seriously. And I knew that about Jeff. And I think one of the biggest qualms Jeff has, and he'll always say it to this day, is he wished he pushed himself. But for you, it was a little bit different. You did push yourself because whether it was Coach York or Coach Driscoll or just us, just the guys that you were around a lot, we push you. Like, yeah, we would probably just rag on you, get annoying and stuff like that. But I could tell after a while, like I said, after the first, maybe second year, in your mind, you could tell that look. Okay, he got it. I mean, you just sit there and talk. So right now, I want you to talk about, because I know now for you how you played, and me knowing the person you are and the type of player you developed to be. When you look, because I know you were a part of the coaching staff. I don't know if you currently or whatever the case may be. When you see what the legacy that you left and how we played when we were there, what do you see the next generation after us like what is it that you try to install and impede in them?
Well, what I try to do is what I'm trying to do now. Well, let me go back and say the generation after me was Dave Ben.
Mm-hmm.
It was T Davis. It was Ben Arnold. It
Mm-hmm.
was Frank Moultrie. It
Mm-hmm.
was Bruce Hall, and then Stephen Dennis
Mm-hmm.
and Woody. Um, those guys. So they kind of, for me, it was like they took the torch and ran with it,
Okay.
right? Like they took it and ran with it, and they kind of kept it going, and everything kind of kept matriculating every 2 to 3 years. We're in the finals, or we
Mm-hmm.
won the PSAC East, or whatever the case may be. And prior to us coming, there wasn't there wasn't any of that.
All right.
Before Driscoll got there, there wasn't a foundation of winning. And I remember it like yesterday, coming in as a freshman, and there was this girl on the women's team, or a young lady on the women's team, and I was in there shooting, and she was like, "Hey, it's our time to be in the gym, and we're going to play the long way."
All right.
And I was just like, I'm just on a side basket shooting,
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Well, y'all ain't good anyway, so it ain't no need for you to." That when that you know how I am. I'm like, "Oh, all right, I'm leaving my mark. It's got to be left here. Like, no, I'm changing things." And
Right.
I just had that mentality of, if I'm going to be out here, I'm not going to waste my time.
Right.
And time is something that we don't get back.
True.
If
Very
you
true.
put yourself in a position where you're going to work hard, you're going to stay true to what you say you're going to do. I'm a firm believer that you can write your own history.
Right.
And I try to get our young guys now to understand that. And the going through COVID really hurt us, and then the transfer portal hurt us. And I'm currently coaching now
Mhm.
at the university, and we had a talk towards the end of the year about how important it is in your career to not take these moments
Mhm.
of college for granted, right? And I want to say after that conversation, we changed how we approach different people with this new generation,
Mhm.
right? Because I'm so used to being like, I know what pushed me, so I'm expecting it to push them as well. And
Right.
that's one of the hardest adjustments that I think I had to make, was understand that everybody doesn't have the same mindset that I have. Not
Right.
everybody wants to go play professionally. Not everybody wants to put in that work.
Right.
So adjusting to that and then getting the kids to understand, like, hey, I need to acknowledge when they do something right, or I need to wait till they come out of timeouts and things of that nature, and let them know that they made a mistake, but this is how you move forward past that mistake.
Right.
Little things like that, it really helped us. And we ended this year on a 6-game winning streak,
Mhm.
and we missed the playoffs by 1 game. But
Mhm.
we had a really good team this year. We're going to be even better next year. The culture is changing. We're not going to use the transfer portal, I hope, for a while, because that's a mess. But yeah, we're looking to get that culture of
Mhm.
winning that we had once before.
Good. I just like one of the lasting memories I had was being you guys' big brother, especially like after I was done and I would come down every so often and talk to you guys and see you guys. I don't know what happened between the time I'm leaving and the time you guys became the elder statesman, but you guys, I heard you guys got into brawls. I was like, what are we doing, fellas? What are we doing?
Yeah, man. It
And
was it
yeah,
was a it was
it,
a
it,
tough time.
yeah, it was definitely tough because I remember Jeff calling me a couple of times. I was like, what? But yeah, it was always a good time,
Yeah,
especially, just the overall experience, like you touched on when it comes to college. I think now more so the generation after us and the continuing generations, they don't cherish it as much.
right.
You had brought up the transfer portal as it pertains to, sports, whether it's basketball, football, all the sports, extracurricular activities that our university had provided. I think it's hard because I talk to people about that kind of attitude that a lot of people have, and I think it decreases work ethic. Um, it develops sore losers. I think it just like the overall people want things easy, and it's not meant to be that way. I think a lot of people lose light and sight of sports and what it entails. It's supposed to be battle. You're supposed to be competing. Um, I think a lot of it now it's generated to being like an all-out AAU pool. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to play with their best friend, or they want to go to school because they didn't like how the coach looked at him or said something to him, you know, and the whole host of things down the line. But let's move away from the basketball court. Um, you are married. I know
Yes.
that. I didn't come to your wedding, but I came after. I came to the reception slash gathering dinner that you had in Why Missing. Am I right?
Right. Right.
Um, so that was some years ago. So how is married life, and how does that dynamic with you and your wife work? And yeah, just touch a little bit about that.
Oh man, it is like you said, it's work. It
Yeah.
is work. It's a balancing act of multifaceted jobs. Both when we were overseas,
Hmm.
um, doing that, playing overseas for 12 years, and coming back here, adjusting. Um, and I met my wife. Of course, I met her in college.
Hmm.
She's a graduate of Kutztown as well.
Hmm.
Got married, but people would say was young. I got married at 25, so we've been married for almost 16 years now.
Oh, nice.
Um,
Congratulations.
And it's just been, I thought that I was just like, yo, this is the one. I don't work this well with anybody as far as like going to go do things. And I'm having basketball. She worked full time in college. We still was able to see each other.
Mhm,
When we would have classes, we would walk in the same direction.
mhm.
It was just like, I'm on my journey, you're on your journey, and we just kind of collided.
Right.
And it was just like, all right, as long as we can keep working these things out and going to the next thing and still being true to who we are and being true to each other, it's going to work.
Mhm.
And, we have our problems just like any other marriage. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? We have our ups and downs.
Mhm.
We have our time apart. Um, Man, we talk probably more than most couples.
Yeah.
Um, we still talk on the phone 2 to 3 hours if we need to. When I was overseas, I thank God every day that MS uh, what was it? It was on Hotmail,
Mhm.
Microsoft, when they first started their online where you
Oh,
can
the
make
chatting.
calls.
Yeah.
Yeah, the online chat and then call. Because when I first went to Argentina, I burnt out calling cards. Like it was crazy. And then I went from there, and then we finally got to Skype, and then we got to FaceTime, and so it made things easier being overseas when she couldn't be there.
Mhm.
Um, but I needed her there with me. She came overseas after my second year in Sweden, and
Mhm.
that was rough for her, extremely hard for her because she came out of school making 40 grand,
Mhm.
like her first job out, and she graduated with a degree in mathematics. Um, and she gave it up to be with me
Right.
overseas. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
made some money. It wasn't that great, but I ended up winning a championship with her there with me, which ballooned my salary
Mhm.
way. It doubled my salary.
Mhm.
So then I was able to take care of her, take care of things, and stack money and all of that good stuff.
Right.
But her putting her faith in me, um, I'll never forget what she went through to put us in a position
Right.
where I could have a good state of mind. I could focus on the game, cooking, cleaning, dealing with the finances, and finances is a whole nother subject as far as like having somebody who's willing to go through and understands numbers, right? She
Right.
she has a degree in mathematics. So she explained to me about how to pay the house off and all of those things. And it's because of her that my house is paid off now, and I paid it
Mhm.
off for 3 years, which is amazing to most people.
Yeah.
We had a plan, we stuck
Right.
to it, and I thank her for what she gives, and she gives more than I could probably ever give her credit for. But it's you got to be willing to go through the ups and downs. You got to
Mhm.
learn people. You can never think that you're good enough where you are.
Mhm.
And when you go through situations, I tell people all the time, when you go through situations and you may not like what that person has to say, you have to reflect on who's telling you this. Like if
Right.
this is your partner in life,
Mhm.
they only want you to get better. So put your pride aside a little bit. Let's focus on the substance and content of what they're saying,
Mhm.
and let's see if we can grow from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, if there's one attribute that you could say your wife does to kind of center you, complete you, what would it be?
Whew, she is she's a realist,
Okay.
and I know that about her. Like
Mhm.
like all the outside noise, she's gonna give me the real at
Right.
the end of the day. And I know that if it hurts my feelings, she's doing it because she loves me.
Mhm.
And if it builds me up, she's doing that to make our family greater, the
Right.
ego and things of that nature. And I think she does a good job at it.
Mhm.
Um, I think that she's a very thoughtful person, even though she might not think that she is. So when she sees this, she's gonna be like, "Oh, okay." Uh, but she's extremely thoughtful, but
Mhm.
she's very efficient and the
Mhm.
things that she does. She doesn't like wasting anything.
Right.
And I love that about her. I love that about her.
No, that's definitely good, and that's high praise, especially with how like everything is attributed and coming through on the internet, social media, and everything about how people are supposed to conduct themselves in relationships. Obviously, you guys are married and been going through it for quite some time and continuing. I just think you know, it's hard because the operative word is work, right?
Yeah.
And it takes a lot, not only from the woman, it takes a lot from us men too.
Mhm.
Because there's certain things that we value. And obviously, we get told a lot as far as, what it is, what it looks like to make your happy wife, happy life, and all that rhetoric going on. But I think to do it, it takes two. And I think, having examples definitely help you kind of provide a blueprint, right? So I want you to kind of touch on your folks. What is it that you extract from them, from how they raised you, and what are certain values, core values you use to implement in your wedding? I mean, in your marriage.
Um, oh man. I think about a lot of it deals with my religious views and how I was raised.
Right.
My mom and dad, my mom, interestingly enough, my mom and dad had they were together all together probably 20 something years.
Mhm.
And when I was 8 years old, they were probably in probably year 10. And my dad stepped out, and my mom, it was tough for her dealing with that.
Mhm.
And in Islam, you can have two wives.
Mhm.
So my dad was just like, "Hey, I'm gonna try this thing out and see if it works." It didn't work, right? So that I was just like, "That's something I would never do." I just
Mhm.
I can't with especially as much as I know you have to balance, like I said
Right.
before, with a marriage. So I was like, all right, that's something that I wouldn't do. But at no point did my dad ever talk bad about my mom.
Mhm.
At no time. And my dad made a share of mistake, a bunch of mistakes. My mom laid him out for it and things of that nature. But I never seen him talk bad about my mom. I never seen him behave in a manner that would disrespect us or the family. You know
Right.
what I mean? Or put himself out there like that. It was just it was it taught me that when adversity comes, you got to remain humble through it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's one of the things I take away. My wife comes from a two-parent household, which is beautiful, and I got to see their ups and downs, the things that they go through. I seen what it looks like
Mhm.
when a marriage works. Um, I have a bunch of mentors as well that shows how marriage works, the importance of marriage, how it builds community, how it builds family. And we're currently in a society, I feel like, and in a space where marriage is, it's almost like, why do it? You know
Right.
what I mean?
Mhm.
And my job at Kutztown University is in two things. I'm the athletic diversity and inclusion officer,
Mhm.
and I'm the assistant men's basketball coach.
Right.
And as the athletic diversity and inclusion officer, I see that we are getting to a space where we're becoming more and more individualized.
Mhm.
And communities are breaking down. And when you hear, the chants of Black Lives Matter and this movement and that movement, and you know, all of the different communities that's being hurt by certain individuals or having their own separate mindsets, it goes back to me to the community. Like, what are we doing?
Right.
And I think that the breakdown of the family is a major pitfall that we have in our society. And unless we're willing to start at a younger, almost in elementary school, as far as like trying to raise up the family,
Right.
this importance,
Mhm.
we get to the point now where we have, I talk to young people all the time, like, oh yeah, I want to have a baby and I want this. I'm like, well, you want to get married first, right? Let's make sure you pick the person first, right? That you want to have the baby by.
Right. Yeah.
But make sure that you're in a marriage that's going to be beneficial, because if you come from a household where there's a two-parent household, why wouldn't you want to give that to your children?
Right.
So it's a lot to, man, I could talk about marriage and the importance of marriage and community and things of that for hours, man.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's we'll leave some stuff left for desire.
Yeah.
But you have kids, right?
Yep. I have a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old boy and a
Awesome.
girl.
That's a beautiful thing. So speak on that. How have they impacted your life since they arrived?
Whew, man. My daughter was born in 2009,
Hmm.
July 2009. And when Obama came in office, I was like, all right, yeah, we can do it now. Let's get this black family started.
I hear that.
So in 2009 she was born, and it was very interesting to me to have my daughter. Looks a lot like me. My son looks a lot like my wife.
Mhm.
So it was interesting when she was born and seeing her and having a female person that looks like me.
Right.
And then she's athletic, long and lanky, um,
She
much
got
like how I was,
she
man.
got daddy's traits.
Yeah, yeah, she got a lot of daddy's traits, and she's very soft spoken.
Mhm.
Um, but what it did for me when I had a daughter was it made me so much more calm,
Mhm.
so much more.
Yeah, Lord knows, because for the people that don't know Bilal like I know him, you talk about high strung. Oh boy, this guy. There's a couple of times me and him I had to like sit him down. I'm like, yo, bro, come on, man, take it. But go ahead, continue.
No, he ain't lying. He telling the truth. So yeah, like I think if I probably would have had a boy, I would have
Mhm.
been on him trying to raise a soldier immediately,
Yeah.
right? Like that was just I was so disciplined, so militant, so my respect was everything to me, right?
Right.
And
Mhm.
even that changed about me, right?
Mhm.
Like I still want my respect, but I think love is extremely important. And
Right.
um it made me get a better understanding once I had my daughter of the importance of being calm, being compassionate, being loving, being caring, being gentle,
Mhm.
and understanding that I'm raising a daughter. And then when my son was born, I felt like I had the balance,
Yeah.
because if I would have had him, I wouldn't have had the balance. So then my son is born, looks like my wife. His He's quick witted. Um, at 2 years old, he was telling jokes. Like
Mhm.
he's something else, and he still is. My daughter wants to be a softball player. My son wants to be an engineer. He's only 10.
Oh, nice.
He asked me, like, we go to Kutztown, and he asked, "Hey, do they have an engineering program here?" And all of that stuff. So he's very forward thinking, and he's very intentional about how he moves. So I think I don't know if I could say my son has my mind, has my wife's more or less features,
Okay.
and my daughter has my features, has more of her, mindset of how she wants to go about things. She lines things up. She's very analytical with things.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just interesting having children and then thinking before I had children, I'm like, I'm gonna raise these little people and
Mhm.
they're gonna do exactly what I tell them to do.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work at all. Doesn't work at all. But yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost interesting because, like you said, when they're first born, you look at them like, oh, okay, this is all me. And then as the years pass, and for you, I know it's just a shocker. It's just 13, now 10. You're like, damn, they not a kid anymore, right?
No.
Um, yeah. So let's go back to your wife. I know her a little bit. Um, because we were all in school, roughly at the same time.
Mhm.
Um, the personal dynamics between you and your wife, like when you guys get into disagreements, quarrels, arguments. What does fighting fair look like? What is that? How do you guys, I think you said it, how do you balance it? Because I think we now are in an age where people are so quick to quit.
Mm-hmm.
They forget that there's a lot of hard work and effort that goes into it. And plus, if you've built that foundation, or at least starting to, and trending that towards that direction, is quitting really an option?
For me, quitting is not an option. There's very few things that I'm going to give up on, and I can see that in her as well. And that was one of the things that I liked when we were in college. We were able to balance a lot of different things. But when we do have our arguments, right? Like,
As I'm
you know,
sure.
and you know how I am about backing down on things. I don't like to back down, but she can frame things in a way where it's just like, all right, let me look at this differently,
Mhm.
because I do love this person, and they're telling me things about myself, or they telling me things that I don't necessarily want to hear.
Right.
And I ask people, like I said, I work in DEI,
Mhm.
and I teach a workshop on emotional intelligence, which I think everybody needs. And if we can get it into young people early, it could change the world. I'm gonna be honest.
Facts. True facts.
So I ask people, like, if somebody that loves you tells you an uncomfortable truth, you have two options. And the two options is, one, be offended, right?
Right.
And the other one is to be grateful.
Yeah.
This person that loves you is telling you something. And why are they telling you this? And
Right.
at the end of the day, if you're becoming offended, some work you need to do on your end, because this probably doesn't offend everyone. So
Right.
what is the work that you need to do? Number one. And then when it comes to being grateful, how do you show your appreciation by that person telling you that? Right. So
Mhm.
what work do I need to do to show you that I appreciate what you're doing for me? Right. And it goes both ways. She get upset when I tell her stuff too, right?
Oh, of course.
And I know how I process. I need to go for a walk. I need to go for a run. I need to go lift weights. I need to go do something
Right.
because of my just physical nature and how upset I get.
Right.
And that's the way I kind of handle things. But when we first had our first arguments, I would leave immediately. And then when I come back, we wouldn't talk about it. It would be
Mhm.
like it never happened. So when we go through things now, it's just like, I need to take a break. I need to go somewhere. I need to clear my mind. I need to clear my head. But when I come back, we're gonna have this conversation.
Right.
We're gonna get to the bottom of it. So um, that's kind of what it looks like for us. Never got into any physical confrontations or anything like that. I've been blessed. I think probably after, I want to say, my third year out of school, I haven't been in any physical altercations, which is great for me. It's great for me.
Yeah, let's keep it that way. We're getting up there in age. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody is in the mode for tussling and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think one of the last conversations, one of the more recent conversations I have with people, they asked me like, "Yo, do you?" Like, I was like, "No, for me at this point, I just stay out of the way. I
Yeah.
don't really try to do as much as
Mhm.
what people think, as far as like being out the nightlife and doing that, because the world has changed, right? Even
Yeah.
from when we grew up and got out of school and stuff like that. And we were in school early 2000s. So like it's hard to kind of fathom that 20 years down the line, we're in 2023
Mhm.
and so much of the world has changed, right? And it's like, you know, you don't know what to say, you don't know what to do because you're going to offend people. You might say the wrong thing. You might, just everything. You have to be you have to be super cautious because everyone is censoring someone because of what? So even telling jokes, even some of the jokes that we told each other when we were in school
Man.
would be outlawed. I'm not even going to say like people would look at you wrong. They'd just be outlawed. Like we would be, everything like phobia, everything. They would have just put us that. That would have been our tank.
Mhm.
But okay, so I got a couple of words for you,
Okay.
and I want you to tell me, I want you to speak to it and tell me what they mean to you and how it impacts you.
Okay.
First word is trust.
Ooh, trust. Oh man, trust is so important. Um, and trust is a funny thing, right?
Mhm.
Because trust is not something that you by yourself can determine. It's a two-person thing, or someone else, or a group of other people, right?
Mhm.
And for me, you have to have the faith and the vulnerability to be trusting of someone. So you got to kind of put yourself out there. And I think if you have the courageousness, if you're courageous enough, um, if you're vulnerable enough, if you are, if you have the faith and trust, I mean, and ability, and you see the type of person that someone else is, and you believe you have a good enough judgment of that person's character, then trust is something that I think is extremely important.
Mhm.
And I think what also comes with trust is transparency.
Yeah.
So um, I think that those things are all important. I think that trust is not something that we do as a society very well. We're not willing to trust people. And I think it goes back to us being as courageous as we need to be to allow someone to fail us
Right.
and then learn from that failure so you can improve on your own judgment of character, right? Like that's what's important about it. So yeah, that's what I think of trust.
Okay. That was good. Second one, compromise.
Compromise. Ooh, man. You you'll be alone and very lonely if you can't compromise.
All the way
Compromise
facts.
compromise is something that we have to do. I'm a big believer that if I'm unwilling to do it,
Mhm.
everybody should be unwilling to do it. And if everybody can do it, if I can do it, everybody should be able to do it. Right. So if I want something a certain way and I expect them to bend, I expect them to have to compromise on things, I too, at some point, will have to compromise in order to continue to make this thing work, whatever it is, whether it's basketball, not getting enough shots on the court, if it's hours at work and getting overtime, like, all right, I won't take the overtime this week so somebody else can get it. If
Mhm.
it's even in my relationship with my wife or with my children. And and when I say with my children, I really mean this because there are some times that I felt like as a kid where my dad would do things. I'm like, he ain't supposed to be doing that. I can't say nothing.
Mhm.
But now, as an adult, I say things to my father or to my mother, and they don't want to hear it, right?
Mhm.
And I'm trying to make sure that they get it.
Right.
And when my son says the same thing to me, I'm like, yeah, let me know. I'm glad you told me. Because when I get up in age, I'm gonna need to lean on you, especially when you're an engineer making millions and millions.
Nah, yeah, yeah. He's gonna be the breadwinner.
Yeah. So, but I understand that that I expect my kids to do well enough for them to correct me at any time. You know
Right.
what I mean? If I'm raising them the right way, their perspective matters and how they view me. So I want to make sure that I'm giving them, the real at the end of the day.
100%. Next one I have for you is loyalty.
Loyalty. Oh man. This loyalty is tough for me. And it's tough for me because of where I grew up at.
Mhm.
And so many of my friends have been in situations where loyalty hurt them.
Yep.
Um, I understand the concept. I understand the purpose. I understand loyalty, but loyalty one way, whoo,
Yeah.
whoo, that's bad. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
it goes back to trust that
Mhm.
we mentioned earlier. But I think loyalty is very important when you have somebody that's trusting and you build a relationship with them, and goes back to transparency.
Mhm.
That loyalty and commitment is extremely important, and I think that they go hand in hand. And loyalty is something. that I think is overlooked
Hmm.
because people aren't trusting.
Right.
I think loyalty is abused by people who are trying to take advantage of others.
Right.
So you got to be. I think you really have to be careful who you're loyal to and what you're and who you're loyal to and what you're loyal to.
Yeah. Just to piggyback off what you said, I think it's very important that you did raise that tidbit. People's past, whether it be like, certain events, traumas, whatever the case may be, that does play a part, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's hard, but you know, when someone has gone through something or experienced something in the past, it understand and recognize it had nothing to do with you. But I think how it's being like projected towards you is going to make you feel some type of way. But you almost have to, practice a level of restraint
Mhm.
because whether it's your homeboy, your wife, girlfriend, or whatever the capacity is, you have to be understanding to a fault. No one here is saying, lay down and be anybody's, no one's walkway. Like no one's gonna like no one's punching bag, so to speak. But I
Yeah.
think a level of understanding and a level of grace.
Yes.
I think it's much easier said than done. Just because we're saying it doesn't make it any easy. But that I think those are like prime ingredients to kind of bring everything whole.
Yeah.
The last one I have for you is love.
Oh man, love encompasses all. It really does. It's funny. You asked Jeff on the previous past
Mhm.
thing about respect or love,
Mhm.
and I was like,
No,
man.
don't fast forward. That one I'm
Oh,
gonna ask you.
I'm sorry.
Just
I'm
just
sorry.
keep the love. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. All right, but for me, love, like I think that love encompasses all, right? Like everybody loves something. Everybody um is needs to be loved. Everybody wants to be loved, even if they act like they don't. I
Mhm.
think it's something that's innate in you to be loved and want to have love and appreciation for others. Um, I try to, for me, love is something that has levels,
Yep.
right? I
Absolutely.
think there's levels to it, right? I love my mailman for doing his job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love the guy who comes and picks up the trash. I love people in general. There's a general aspect of love,
Mhm.
and then there's people who have this love that I can give that is just like I can't get at everybody.
Yeah.
I can't love everybody that way. I can't um, give them my time. I
Mhm.
can't give them my energy and my focus and effort, and I can't give them all of me. And I think that that's what love is: being willing to be committed to the success of someone else is
Mhm.
love. Like that's loving someone.
Yeah.
And to me, being in love with that person is just the undying commitment. Like I'm willing to give my life up
Mhm.
for this person. And when I say give up my life, I'm not talking about dying in all cases. I mean, every day that I work towards something, we're dying every day.
Right.
So as I put forth my resources, my time each day, and I'm
Mhm.
willing to give you those things, I'm dying for you. My kids they'll understand one day in the future that daddy worked 3 jobs at one point in time to provide for us. That was
Right.
killing me. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And it's love it is truly the ultimate expression for me of sacrifice for someone else.
Right.
So yeah, that's my idea of it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's definitely impactful.
Yeah.
All right. I asked. Obviously, you watched it, and I'm going to ask you the same thing. What is one regret to this day that still irks your last damn nerve?
Oh man, one regret that I have. Whew. When I was in Sweden, right? And a
Mhm.
lot of people don't know this. When I was in Sweden, we had just won a championship, and I was MVP of the finals.
Mhm.
Um, and prior to that, I didn't like the deal that my agent gave me. And before going to Sweden, I was living in New Jersey. I had played in a game. It was me, Ronaldo Balkman, Mustafa Shakur, Marty Collins. We're all under CAA agency. Same agency, Allen Iverson. I worked out with Allen Iverson every day, and all of those guys. Jason Thompson was next, ready to come in behind us on an agency, and we was all under Andre Buck, and had a real good like game with all of those potential NBA players and NBA players on the floor. In fact, I played against Vince Carter in the game. And then, I immediately went to China. China, $25,000 a month. Good money. Things didn't work out that well. And then I went to Sweden. I came home, and then the next day I left to go to Sweden. And coming from making all of that money, and then I see my contract in Sweden, I'm just like, what is my agent doing? Right. So the year progresses on, and I'm like, my bonuses ain't right. Like, I felt like I should have been getting more money. And then I start hearing from other agents, like, hey, we got a job here for you. We got a job there for you. So I was like, you know what? This agent he ain't working out, man. So he sends me a message while I'm in Sweden. He says, hey, can you send me your film? I might have something for you. Never told me what the something was. I might have something for you. It's like, nah, we done. You know what I mean? We done. Things ain't work out the way I wanted them to work out. So I come back. We win a championship. I don't send him film. I send film to these other guys overseas and things of that nature. I come back to New Jersey, and I'm there, and I'm with me, DeJuan Wagner, a couple other people working out in the gym, and we're at Next Level facility in New Jersey. And the guy comes over to me. He's like, hey, so whatever happened with the Clippers? I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, the Clippers was interested in you after the game. They wanted to wait until the following year where you got some film. And I'm just like, now, mind you, I still worked out with the Nets, worked out with the Sixers, worked out with Sacramento Kings. But at that point in time, I think I was probably like 26.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And I didn't get a lot of these other opportunities until I was 29 and 30, 31.
Yeah.
And it was just like, they would have brought me in a camp probably, because they already seen me play.
Right.
I just killed over here in Sweden, won a championship, MVP, all of that good stuff. And I was just like, I can't believe that I did that. So if I could rewind the time, talk about being humble, talk about being transparent, loyalty, all of those things, I should have investigated more. Like you said, like I should have gave people more grace. I should have been more willing to say, hey, you know what? Let's talk about this. This is what I didn't like. This is how I think things should have went.
Right.
And had a conversation. All in all, me and that agent, we ended up working together on other things.
Okay.
Got back, had a good conversation afterwards. But yeah, if I could have changed one thing, it would have been that. It definitely would have been that.
Yeah, it's just amazing because when people talk about relationships, they don't. For us men, I can speak about that. Like whether it's in the business world, athletic world, we don't think things through, right? We just we do a lot of impulse thinking. If we feel wronged, you only got one chance to mess up.
Right.
But as we get into our advanced ages, we learn to like kind of sit back, listen to people, or at least listen to their point of view. We can kind of see through the BS much sooner than later, and then kind of understand like what next steps look like for us. But damn, if you would have told me that early a couple of years, I would have just beat you up, just like we were in school, just for doing some dumb stuff like that. But it's hindsight. It's a blessing. You've traveled the world. You've gotten opportunities to see things that most people won't even ever see. You experienced it. This is the question that you almost jumped the gun with. which is more meaningful, impactful to you? Love or respect?
I'm gonna say love.
Okay.
Only because, like I said, love to me it encompasses respect,
Okay.
right? I think to truly love someone or to get love from someone the proper way, and you got infatuation, you got all these other things when you like someone or deeply care for someone. But I think when you respect someone or when you love someone, you have to respect them. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Because you're willing to be committed to them.
Right.
And I think that that respect sometimes you give it and sometimes it needs to be earned, if that makes sense.
100%.
Um, the family, the people who can help you to some degree, you kind of give them that respect, and other times it's earned. Like I think when you have a relationship that's lasting and you really, really love and care for this person, and there's no shadow of a doubt that you are there, that they're there for you, they earn that ability to be loved in that manner. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's just it's to me, love is something that is it's crazy. Like people it's not a logical thing.
Right.
I tell people all the time, love is not logical.
You're
Like
100% right.
you there's things that you do for people that you love that you wouldn't do for other people. It just doesn't make
Mhm.
sense. So that and it goes back to again to that emotional intelligence piece as to reading the room, reading the people, understanding them.
Mhm.
Um it's it's amazing. I think love is amazing. I think that if we could all love more,
Mhm.
you would get the respect.
Mhm.
We would have our communities back together. There would be a lot less of foolishness. I think greed plays into people not truly loving one another and things of that nature. So love for me is all. Love is all.
No, I definitely respect that, and you package that great because the both both emotions, both actions do coincide, right? So it's one of those things where it goes hand in hand. Some on you know it depends on there's levels to it.
Hmm.
Uh, you walk into different rooms, you meet with different people. So there's a difference between a friend, family member, and associate. So
Right.
everything deserving of your time, but you ultimately are the one that deciphers which emotion invokes that.
Hmm.
um so Bilal, at this age, I believe you are 41, 42 at this juncture.
Yep.
What would Bilal at this advanced age tell Bilal at 17 or 18 years old?
Oh man, probably your light is brighter than you ever expected it to be. Um, I was man, I'm a middle child of I got six brothers and sisters. So I got middle child syndrome when I was younger. Like I got stuff, it came down, and as soon as I got it, I had to give it away.
Pass it
You
on,
know what I
yeah.
mean? And I felt probably at 17, 18 years old, like what am I doing here? Like what is my purpose?
Right.
Like why why me and why aren't I getting the things that I want? And I would tell myself that your light is going to be bright and you got to be patient.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You got to be patient. You're charging right now. I tell a lot of our young guys that they are on the springboard and you're going down right now. Be prepared to go up when you're ready to go up.
Right.
And I was young and into stuff and bad attitude and all of those things, dealing with, low economic status and all of those things. But
Mhm.
somebody would have told me then, like, yeah, don't worry. In 20 years, you're gonna have your own house to be paid off. You have two kids, you driving in German engineer cars and all of that stuff. I'm like, I don't know who what fortune teller you've been around, but that don't look like it's coming from me. And I'm gonna
Right.
be 6'7" instead of probably 6'1" at the time at 17. So it's you don't know what God has in store in you. You just got to keep the faith. And um, there were things in my past that increased my faith and made like that real to me. Like God was real to me, and I seen how He put His hand in my situations and made things better for me, and allowed me to go to Kutztown and be more dynamic, so I could go to Argentina, and then I could go to Finland, and then I could go to Sweden, Switzerland, Morocco, Hong Kong, Qatar, Mexico, all of these different places, and enjoy the world and see the world because of His faith and being willing to conform to reality so I can manipulate it later and get the things that I need.
Absolutely.
And without faith, without patience, without any of those things, and I think sometimes God puts you in tough situations to make you be prepared to have patience.
Right.
Like the only way you get patience is by being patient.
Right.
You know, having to suffer through those things, ultimately, it brings you happiness at the end of it.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely a journey. I mean, we don't reach this juncture in age, and we don't get here without life experiences. I tell people all the time, especially younger guys that I talk to, even whether I'm at the gym or just in just random talks, we have experience, but it's always trickled down from somewhere. We lived through a lot of things. You mentioned your upbringing, the city you came from. It resonates for a lot of people that look like us.
Yeah.
Being inner city kids, being around the nonsense, being around the music, being around, just the overall rhetoric that's being thrown out there. When we walk outside as Black men, we're proud,
Yeah.
but it's also to a degree we're taking a chance. We all have options, but it's up to us to make the choice. You know what I mean? And it's hard as time goes, because you had mentioned the BLM movement, and all those kind of things. It's just hard because you're right. If there was more love and more cohesiveness, I think we'd be on a better path. But a lot of times people have their own agendas. Why is that? No one will ever know. Lord knows I don't. But Bilal, give us your closing statements if you have any.
Oh man. I think like you said, we have our own agendas, and it's very hard for us, being where we came from and how we were raised in a country and in a nation of our past. It's very hard for us not to think about just us.
Right.
And then when you think about just us, we haven't been able to get it just us. So now we got to think about the individuals. What can I do? And when it goes to the individual, in order to get everybody going, there has to be a sacrifice. So now it's like, okay, what am I sacrificing for? So it goes back to this: am I willing to sacrifice the things that it took so hard to get for everybody else, and everybody else is not on the same page that I'm on?
Right.
So it's a double-edged sword. I think that we are going to be able to get it done. We are going to be able to become more cohesive. I think we have to start with the younger generation. Me and my son and my daughter, we got an emotional will, and I talk to them every day about the emotions that they experience, because I think emotions have a very they have some with negative connotations, some with positive connotations to it.
Right.
And to me, emotions are really just emotions, and how do you benefit from each one of them, whether it's good or bad.
Right.
So I think that we just got to start with our youth. We got to start with the young people and build them up and show them the right way to do it. And man, I appreciate you for having me on this podcast.
Anytime.
I appreciate not only having me on this podcast, but the things that we discussed on the podcast. You know, everybody
Yeah.
will talk about all these other things that that matter, but aren't necessarily beneficial
Right.
to the movement in which we say we want to instill, not only in our communities but to society as a whole. So I appreciate you for that. I thank you for that, and yeah, man, it's all love. It's
Uh,
always
you know how it goes down with us. For me, how I want to close it out is, you know, we've known each other, like I said, since way back. And you know, it's definitely always good to link up. And I know right now everybody's at different stages of their life, and I think we all have to do better. I spoke to Jeff. I said once he makes his self back onto U.S. surface, or even if I have to take a plane to get to him, like we have to make it work because, you know, we're in a space now where like everyone has to like really take care of themselves, not like, you know, I got to look out for self, but you have to look out health wise,
Mhm.
just overall sanity, um you know, and you know, us being men, maybe we don't say it enough, but I miss you guys. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We're spread out all over the US, some of us all over the world. I've reached out to other people where I'm going to have them on the podcast as well. And, you know, hopefully one episode, it will be one big conglomerate where it's you, a whole bunch of us, where
Yeah.
we're just sitting there and just talking, just like we were in the lunchroom or where we're in Keystone Arena, just
Right.
like old times. And, you know, that's how I envision it. Like, we need to go do something, whether it's all of us just get on a plane, take a vacation, get away for a couple of days. I'm with it. Because I think it's been long enough. You know, a lot of us haven't seen each other for years,
Yeah.
and I think we doing bad because we let it go this long.
Yeah. Well, I miss you too, brother.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate it, man. And
yeah,
even when I was younger, when I would say I miss somebody,
yeah.
it kind of felt awkward.
Right.
But now that I've become a man, and when I
Yeah,
tell people like, "Man, I miss you, bro, and I love
yeah,
you," I
yeah.
really mean it. You know what I mean? It's something that we need to hear. We need to feel comfortable saying that. And
100%,
yeah, man, I really do. I can't
100%.
wait to do it.
Um, People, I want you to understand again. Here, you're witnessing two black men. We're not talking about drugs. We're not talking about violence. We're talking about things that happen in our everyday life, talking about building connections, opportunities, growing, and providing understanding and guidance for the next ones up. More of us need to do that. I think the more we do it, the more accepting, the more we look appealing to people who don't look like us. Because right now, we look like savages. We're doing everything but the right thing. But I have my brother here, and I'll continue to have a bunch of my brothers. And yes, I do have white brothers too, and
Yes.
he will be on the podcast soon. We have a close bond that's never going to be broken. We known each other for years, and I'm not going to keep stressing that enough. But what we know, you don't have to know, and that's what makes it unique.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, that's Bilal Salaam. Bilal, anyway, before we go off, do you have anything you want to plug?
Um, man, there's I don't really have anything that I want to plug. I'm starting my own business.
Okay.
Uh, I'll be doing workshops under focus, effort, energy, and time.
Okay.
It's all about keeping your feet in the craft. It's FEET, focus, effort, energy, and time. So
Mhm.
that commitment, being committed to whatever craft you're in, it doesn't matter if it's basketball, if it's sports, if it's education, whatever it may be, you're going to need your focus, you're going to need your effort, you're going to need your energy, you're going to need your time. It's about having your feet in your craft.
100%.
Yeah.
And let them know where they can find you on social media.
Social media, on Twitter, it's Coach Salaam,
Mhm.
Coach _ Salaam, and on IG is Coach Salaam, all one word. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And if you guys want to really be ignorant, just go to the search bar and type in the damn man's name. It's Bilal Salaam. Stop the nonsense.
Put basketball behind it though.
There
There,
you go.
there's another one, but put
Yeah.
basketball behind it, you can see it. Yeah, I'm here.
Fair enough. Well, with all things being said, Bilal, I appreciate you. Like I opened up, you are my brother from another. I love you. And nothing will ever change between us and our fraternity, our personal fraternity that we have.
Thank you. I love you too, man. I appreciate it.
Likewise.
Always.
Um, all right, people, this wraps up episode 14. Please like, share, subscribe. You heard a great conversation. We'll continue to do this. Trust me, I got a lot of good people in my corner and coming up. So stay tuned. Other than that, it's me, Clem Boogie, and we are straight to it.